The advice we were given was to build a team around you so that the people around you that you put in place are people who have strengths where you have the weaknesses.
Welcome to the show. I'm really delighted to have you here. We're here with Angelo Labrador, a senior associate at NAB, one of Australia's largest banks, and co-founder, CFO of Scoopy, Australia's first dessert brand specialising in Korean bingsu. I'm just so impressed by the journey that you've come to create a business and connect so many people, especially how passionate you are in bringing people from all walks of life, advocate for Asian Australians and sharing their stories. It's a real pleasure, and I'm very thankful that you're here on this show.
Thanks, William. It's an honor to be here, and thanks for having me on as one of your early guests. I'm really excited to be here and really excited to share what my experience has been, and maybe shed a little bit more light and insight on how I got there.
When you started off at KPMG,
I think I was about maybe 23 at that time. Yeah.
Pretty fresh. And I think I was just about to move away from that, going into the creative field. You were super creative, and it seemed like you were quite entrepreneurial by nature. Did you already have big dreams to do something on top of your corporate career?
I think at that time in my life, I was quite happy to delve into a new career in the corporate world. But, I grew up playing instruments and singing and creating, putting videos on YouTube, for example. And so I did have that background. And coming out of uni, I studied commerce. And so there was a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. I would say I'd been dating my partner at that point for maybe 5 years. And we had always talked about starting a business or doing something on the side, and just toyed with that idea. But at that stage, when we first met, I was a vacationer at KPMG. It was really just energy at that time, and we didn't really have anything at that we were working on actively.
You say that with your partner at the time, you were already together for 5 years, and
coming on to 11 years now. So
amazing.
So it's been great.
That's very special.
Yeah.
Talking about starting something together, you guys didn't you?
Yeah. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years into my corporate career at KPMG.
Yeah. This was
2018.
Okay.
Yeah. 2018, we took a couple of trips. We're starting to feel burnt out, as you do in your corporate
What's her name, by the way?
Tesia. Yeah, shout out. We went to Japan that year. We were there for a long time, and whenever you travel,
was that just a holiday?
Yeah, it was just a holiday at that time. We didn't really have intentions of starting a business, but you go through and experience the food, the culture, the way of life. We were there for 5 weeks, and you come back to Australia, see how different it is. Ideas pass through your head, and then
Who really wanted to go to Japan in the first place, you or Tesia?
I would say,
because I'm going to Japan very soon too.
She really was the one to introduce me to anime, to Japanese culture, and so I think she really wanted it more than I did. But I was pretty open-minded, and I really wanted to experience what Japan had to offer. And
It's insane there.
It's crazy. I was looking at tickets. They're opening back up soon, so trying to get there next year again. Later on in the year, we took a family trip to. I went with her family, and we met up with their family in California, and we were there hanging out with her cousin and her uncle in San Diego. They took us to this new cafe. It was like an Asian cafe called Mango Cafe, and they had this special dish called bingsu there. And
first time?
That was the first time that I had it. Maybe we had things like the Taiwanese shaved ice at Dessert Story before that. Pretty limited in my experience of shaved ice before that. Other than
I'm Chinese, and Bing kind of sounds like ice in Chinese? Bing.
Bing.
Bing. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
is Bing Korean ice? Like,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
Su is
Well, yeah, bingsu is what they call, I guess, the shaved ices are in Korea.
in Korea.
And so on that menu that day when we went to
San Diego.
in San Diego, it was called bingsu as well. But they had things like Thai sticky mango sticky rice, and they had other Asian desserts there on the menu too. But this one stood out, and we saw it, and it was just huge, like mound of shaved ice, and the experience is similar to how we designed it now. But you know, they had the condensed milk as well, and we were just gobsmacked at how crazy that experience was. You know, when we came back to Australia, ideas popped into our head again, but I don't know what it was, but this time we were a little bit more, we had a little bit more conviction into like, maybe we should start a business.
Late 2018?
Late 2018. So maybe August, September, we started talking about it seriously.
It was just you and Tesia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just Tesia and I at the time. And so we started ideating on some things, realized that none of us really had a creative bone in our body to kind of make the design of the logo and the other collateral. So,
But you knew that there's no such, you can't get bingsu in Australia.
Yeah. So, sorry, let me take a step back. Before we started ideating on things, we had a look around in the market. At that time in Melbourne, there wasn't really anything. There was a cafe in like Parkville area that did bingsu on the menu, but they were all a bunch of other things as well, not just bingsu. And they had some other ones around town, but nothing like what they had in Sydney, for example. Sydney has a big bingsu market. Like it's been there for a while, and we were like, okay, there's definitely a gap here. So we want to try to see if we can add something to Melbourne's already, diverse food scene. We had grown up, we go into Melbourne uni. Yeah, you're in the city a lot. It's like you automatically become a foodie. You're always looking for something to eat for lunch or dinner.
Yeah.
You're always, before and after studying. So
I could only come up with a generic thing, like everyone just talked about bubble tea at the time.
yeah, bubble tea culture did have an impact on us, and actually it was around the same time that Subtle Asian Traits was in theaters. Subtle Asian Traits was blowing up on Facebook, and the reason why I said theaters was because Crazy Rich Asians hit theaters, around the same time as well. So for us, seeing things like our cultures being talked about a lot on Facebook, and seeing people like us on the big screen really, maybe gave us a little bit more confidence in like actually acting on the ideas that we had to start a business. That does play into a little bit why I'm so passionate about, making
Maybe
food.
you could actually make a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Like people might care.
People might care, maybe there's a little bit more attention on things that sort of Asians are doing.
Do you think in the past, when you look back, that it was subconscious, that I have an idea, but I might not really try because I haven't really seen much public support for it by Asians in the Western world?
And maybe that's something that's a mindset that I have to break out of. But, growing up, I would do a lot of things because I saw other people like me doing them. For example, when I was in high school, I started making YouTube covers, so like playing the piano and singing and putting them on YouTube because I saw people like AJ Raphael doing that. AJ Raphael being a Filipino-American singer-songwriter. Yeah. And so it's things like that inspired me and continued to inspire me as we started the business. And, that's why I'm kind of passionate about pushing for more people like us to be in creative fields or have a live event for them that we've been doing recently. But yeah.
What's an appropriate word for what you're promoting or encouraging? Would you call yourself like an advocate or a supporter? Is there a particular word for that?
So what we've been doing over the last year with Scoopy, we call it Scoopy Friends. I don't think we've put a label on it, but it could be, you could say advocate, or you could say not-for-profit, or just, a cultural group.
Your the Scoopy Friends, if people wanted to follow that, what would be the Instagram?
Yeah,
user?
it's at Scoopy Friends on Instagram.
At Scoopy Friends.
Yeah.
And also for Scoopy, at Scoopy Milk Bar.
At Scoopy Milk Bar, yes.
Yeah.
So going back to the story of how we actually, how we started. So we started putting stuff together. So what was the machine that we needed? So we started just Googling that. Okay, so you can't get it. It's not easy to get in Australia. You have to go to Korea. So we were like, okay, how do we contact them? And just putting together the puzzle pieces here. What do we need? Do we need a logo? How do we design our vision? What's our mission? All of that stuff. And so we kind of just kept chipping away at that. We built our team to 4 people. So it was obviously Tesia and I at the start. We asked Anthony to come on as our designer and head of creative. And then we asked Kevin to come on to help us with operations. So Kevin at the time, he was working with me at KPMG. We had started as grads together. We always just vibed. So it was a good vibe. And so, I think...
What was it that made you say, I want to talk to Kevin. I'm going to share this with him?
I can't take the credit there. I think Tesia, we had gone on a couple of trips with them just to regional Vic, like burn us some steam. And I think we created a friendship there, and I think she also had a good vibe there. And so we asked him to come on to help us with operations. I think we lucked out in terms of building a team. We really tried to build a team that complemented our weaknesses. So we didn't have that much experience with doing operations, and we didn't have that much experience with creating graphic design, for example. And so we kind of put that team together, and no, it's been good ever since.
Do you remember who was your very first customer in trying your bingsu?
I think it was probably a family member or something like that. But I had been speaking to a couple of friends who had started different food businesses around Melbourne, and he was saying, don't forget the first. You're never going to forget the first feeling of your first sale. And maybe I don't remember the person, but that feeling was like unmatched. Like it was like, oh, finally, everything that we've been working for the last couple of months has come to fruition, and everything happened pretty fast. So from the time that we said, oh, we're going to start this business, I think it was like a month or a month and a half, we were then serving the dessert that we created in stores to people.
Wow.
Paying customers. We prepared just enough, and the right opportunity came along, and so that was a bit of luck.
I've heard that you got to be very careful with money or doing business with someone you love to separate your relationship and work.
Yeah.
So you seem to find like the sweet spot, the right harmony with your partner, Tesia. Mm-hmm. What do you have to say about that?
I definitely think there's a fine line between doing business together with your significant other. With Tesia and I, we were always working together to try to make a better life for ourselves, and I know that I would never do anything to sort of put that in jeopardy, and we know where the line is. I think we both understand that if there is a disagreement or if there is some sort of argument about a certain topic within the business, is that it is strictly business, and that we can put that aside and separate that and compartmentalize that from what our relationship is and the strength of our relationship. And I also think that the base that we created, already being together for 5 years and then starting the business, was allowed us to be stronger. You
already knew each other very deeply.
Yeah.
It's not like you got to know each other while working.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, we got together and we started this business straight away. And I already knew her and her family and what her values were. And I think they aligned very well with my values and what we wanted to do, and our thoughts on a traditional pathway or an untraditional pathway.
Could you give a couple examples to people listening? If they have a business, they want to do it and they want to find the right partner to complement them in their personality and skills. Say if someone's so driven with big picture, visionary, they struggle with organization and scheduling, the fine details. Something like that. Any examples that you can think of? How do you find the right partner to complement you?
As we started this, we approached different people, asking for advice and asking them, what should we do what should be our next step? And at that point, it was just Tesia and I. The advice we were given was to build a team around you so that the people around you that you put in place are people who have strengths where you have the weaknesses. When you're choosing those people, you can't take too long to do it.
To decide on them?
To decide on them, because then maybe the idea or the opportunity will just blow away. You kind of have to, it's almost intuition.
Learn as you go.
Yeah. It's almost intuition, and you kind of just have to maybe run with it. Obviously, people are going to have strengths like high level thinking, but maybe don't have the execution or the organization down pat. And I think,
can I ask, how about for you? What are you not very good at? And what would you say you feel very confident about?
I kind of fall in the middle there, and I do have a lot of high level ideas. I think Tesia has me trumped in that department. She can drive the ship like no other, and that's why she's our CEO of Scoopy. I like to connect with people. I like to also do some of the work that's related to that. Maybe my hand-eye coordination in terms of my creative side isn't as good, and so we brought Anthony on to do that. Yeah.
You've done a number of collaborations with very talented creatives and organizations and groups. I'll just mention a couple of them. Asian Hustle Network, Unapologetically Asian, that's AZN. And then we'll go into maybe some of the different artists out there. How did that come on board? And what kind of vision do you see in that going forward?
Yeah. Just for example, Unapologetically Asian, or UA, we reached out to them early on when they were starting their podcast as well, because for the sheer reason that we wanted to network with other Asian Australians who were daring to create something or put something out there in the universe, really. So I wanted to really get to know who they were, what made them do this, what was their background. And to an extent, it was kind of similar to ours, to mine. And we kind of had this vision, or talked about this vision, where we would have this group of people, maybe within Melbourne, maybe within Australia, that different creatives just collaborating together and growing and encouraging each other. That's how we connected, and that's pretty much been the intention of why we're connecting with. We've connected with AHN. Shout out to Nock Lee and Nick Lee for the work that they've done there. That's been an awesome thing that they brought, I guess, the American event to Australia. It was good to be involved in that as well. And with As I Am podcast as well, it was great to connect with them too. Yeah, the different events that we've done, they've been really fun so far, and I really want to sort of expand that going forward to next year. The
Asian Hustle Network event in May this year, I was there, and you were one of the moderators. Yes, yeah. And it was a brilliant event, and very empowering for just so many Asian Australians.
Yeah.
If we could go back to you growing up in Melbourne, yeah, what's like a first memory that comes up in terms of belonging, connecting back to your roots and your parents, and yeah, how did you feel? Like, do you feel like I really belong with the other kids.
My family moved to Melbourne when I was 7 years old. We came from New Zealand. I was born in Wellington, actually. So, I think it was in grade 2, our first rental property that we were there. I think it was in Pascoe. And so I joined the class there, and I just remember, well, actually, at that time, I don't think I even thought about whether I was the only Asian or not.
Yeah, you just thought you were a kid just like everyone else.
Just like everyone else.
And your surname, Labrador.
Labrador.
That's real, right?
It is real.
Yeah, that's a sick surname. Awesome.
Yeah.
And that's from what ethnicity?
It is, I don't know, but I think it's Spanish. Being Filipino, I think
Cool.
that's that Spanish influence coming through. Yeah, that my grandfather, who fled China from the war, moved down to Philippines. My last name is actually it wasn't originally not supposed to be Labrador. My dad's last name was C-S-Y.
I wanted so much to change my surname.
Lou.
Me being Lou, can you just imagine what the kids would make fun of? Lou?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to say it.
Yeah.
You want to, what were they?
Oh, Lulu, Dunny, Poo Poo, etc. But Mr. Labrador, when did you first start to feel, oh, maybe I'm a little bit different from the other kids?
Yeah.
If you ever felt that.
It's all throughout primary school. I don't think I had like maybe 1 or 2 other Asian friends. It was maybe around grade 5, grade 6 when you really start to maybe, you have crushes at school, and you start to realize how different you are from all the other kids. It's something that was hard to process, and I probably didn't process it really until high school. But I do remember this is a distinct choice that I made, because even in high school, growing up in the north side of Melbourne, I really didn't have that many Asian friends until about year 9, where I was like, okay, I'm going to start to like look for other Asians that were in the area but went to different schools. And so maybe I went to a dance class and like met a whole bunch of friends there. And yeah, I think that was one of the first times that I really started to reflect on what that meant, not having that many Asians around me. What part of Melbourne did you grow up in?
I grew up in the West.
Yeah.
In Footscray.
Yeah.
For up until maybe when I was 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I went to the North. Went to Northcote High School.
Oh, nice.
In year 12. I think my first insight of, I'm not exactly Australian, even though I was born here. Like people were saying, "Oh, you're Chinese." Yeah, and I think that was probably from grade 5 or 6, like as an 11-year-old onwards.
Yeah.
And then it became more and more of a deal. Like wasn't really fitting in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But did you feel quite supported? Like good group of friends going to high school?
Yeah. In high school, I also think that in a way, like the way that the Filipino culture sort of looks at sort of the Caucasian person, because obviously the Americans were in the Philippines for quite a while, and I guess that had an influence on always maybe looking to that as a standard, and it's like maybe it did have an effect on me and rubbed off on me in a way that was like, oh, you want to try to be white, you want to try to be like all your other friends that weren't Asian. So for a while there, I was really playing into that a lot. I had a good group of friends in high school, and so that wasn't really an issue. I think I really started to think about that when I was, started to make YouTube videos. You would be encouraged a lot by like other Asians, and I would be like, why don't I have more Asian friends from there? As much as it was fun to create those videos, it was also great to kind of use that as a connecting mechanism to try to make more Asian friends as well.
Sure. Were you quite? It seems like you were quite into being exposed to other YouTubers and musicians such as AJ Raphael, probably Jason Chen or Joseph Vincent, and so forth. And watching them growing up, that probably motivated you to say you could do it too. You could share your stuff to the world.
Yeah.
Were there any Australian Asians that were doing that you looked up to? Because most of them were in America.
Yeah, most of them were. Maybe musician-wise, it would be people like J.S. Lee, who were, this Korean-Australian twin duo who would create music covers. They were probably the most prominent ones. And then from a comedy standpoint, you have people like Chani.
My Chani, yes.
My Chani, yeah. That was like pretty representative of how we grew up as well. And so we did look to them and gain inspiration from them too.
Tell me about the upcoming event that you have with J.S. Lee.
Yeah. So we're working with Unapologetically Asian. We managed to get J.S. Lee to come down and speak and perform in Melbourne. So that's happening next week.
I'm so excited for that.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
Crushing on them when I was a teenager. They're incredibly talented.
They are, and that to see how much impact they still have today is great to see, and it's inspiring. And hopefully, by putting more of these events on, we can start to see other people take the plunge, or dive into other creative projects that maybe they wouldn't have if they didn't see people like us, people like them, doing those too.
Yeah, really kudos to you for driving this, making a difference. You have Scoopy as your dessert business, but what is driving you to have a greater vision of connecting people together, Asian Australians? It's not really just the business. You're doing so much more outside of it. All these events. Yeah, what's driving you?
It kind of goes back to how I gained inspiration as a kid in high school. Looking to the Asian American side of things. I feel like they have a lot more. They probably have a lot more years on us in terms of the community that they've been able to build and how seamlessly they can work with one another, create this like base for a lot of other Asian Australian creators, Asian American creators, sorry.
Right.
And so what's driving me at the moment is I want to have a hand in trying to build something like that for us here in Melbourne or in Sydney or Australia-wide, to kind of be a base for other Asian Australian creatives or people who want to start their own business, or people who want to have maybe a different career path to maybe someone who wants to go corporate or someone who doesn't want to go corporate. It's just about giving other people potential options, really.
For someone that has a job working in corporate, what would you say to them if they wanted to start their own business? Should they quit straight away, go all in for the business, or try and do both? Because somehow you're doing both. Like, you're still at NAB, aren't you?
Yeah.
I can't fathom how you're able to flourish in both, but clearly you are. So
I asked the same question to one of my friends early on, who had come out of a corporate career and started Poked, the Hawaiian poke business in Melbourne. He said, "You don't really have to. You don't have to quit. We're probably more risk averse than most others would say. Quit. You need.
We're risk adverse, as in Australians, or
maybe our upbringing, or maybe Asian Australians, maybe a little bit more risk averse.
Yep.
And I think everybody's situation is different. But the situation that I had at that time, when he told me that, I was like, okay, let me bring it up to my boss. Just tell him, hey, I'm working on this thing on the side. I really enjoy the job that I'm doing. Is there a way I can, have more?
You were actually open. Like, you just shared with your boss that you're starting something else.
Yeah. and not.
Were you
all-
fearful in starting that conversation?
At that point, I was a bit burnt out with my career. Obviously, it was my first full-time job I've been doing for almost 3 years at that point. And you know, it was either, you know, if I told him and he was not supportive, I wouldn't have been too worried about leaving.
Got nothing to lose.
Luckily, Luke
Eason, yeah.
Luke Eason, who we both know, he was super supportive of that, and I think that allowed me to kind of take the steps that I needed to, because I knew that I had that backing. But also, I did something. I don't know if even if people can do this, but I took my leave that I'd accumulated over time, and I was like, "Hey, Luke, can I use one of these days of leave every week, and scatter my leave over time?"
And that meant you would work instead of 5 days a week, 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And have one day where you can focus on yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And so, in a way, yes, there was a bit of a sacrifice there because I couldn't get as much work done. Maybe I would have sacrificed a promotion earlier or something like that.
Right. Did that surprise you that your boss supported you on that? Gave you that day off?
I think KBMG generally looks well upon that. I think at the time, there was no oh, why are you doing that? There was no bad reaction to it.
I used to think it's either one or the other. I thought the boss would think, well, if you're not quite committed to this job, then leave, don't stay. There's no in between.
Yeah.
But it seems in some firms, fortunately in the firm that we worked at, they were actually very encouraging.
They were. I wanted to ask you, when did you start your acting career or start doing that, and were you still at KPMG, and how did that eventuate?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. To cut the story very short, I went to Luke Eason and I said, I want to leave because I want to be an actor. And the boss said, are you sure, mate? He's like, have a think about that and we can give you a career break.
Okay.
You know, 1 year off, unpaid, but when you come back, the job is still there waiting for you.
Yeah.
Right. And I said, but I have no intention of coming back. But he said, yeah, but there's no guarantees that you will stay afloat after 1 year trying to be an actor. And if it doesn't work out for you, we'll still be here for you. So he gave me that. I was very grateful. I didn't want to say to him, can I have a year off? I want to try acting and maybe I'll come back. I just said I don't want to come back. And there was even the talk of maybe I could work 2 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you get anything done in 2 days?
Sorry? I couldn't get anything done in 5 days a week, so I'm not sure about 2 days.
Yeah.
So I guess for the people out there who are thinking about it, sometimes just share, and you never know how supportive your employers could be. You don't necessarily need to quit.
I think at that time, we had already built a little bit of a team. So there was already 4 of us willing to commit a little bit here, a little bit there.
The team, Tesia and Kevin and
Anthony.
Were they all working professionally?
Tesia was studying, Kevin was working where I was working, and Anthony, he was a freelance designer. So he had the time. So 2 out of the 4 people had a lot of time. 2 of us were in careers.
And all 4 of you communicated and shared your time accordingly to try and build this.
Yeah. It was definitely an effort to make sure that we all made the appropriate time commitment, and so we got enough work done in the after hours of the days that we. Early days, it was really exciting. We would sit down at a round table and with these business plan documents, okay, so what do we envision for this and that? Yes, it was after hours, but it was still, it was high energy. And I think if you have that and you feel that going into your, whatever you're trying to do, whether it be after hours, a side thing, I think that bodes well. And to have that support group who are working towards the same thing, you know, if you have that, then I think you're in a good position.
Could you have done it by yourself?
No, I don't think so, honestly. I'm only one man, and I'm only one person, so I can do the cold emails. I can try to create some sort of opportunities, but executing and following that through is a little bit harder. I need more hands. I need more heads. Definitely Scoopy wouldn't be where it's at now if it wasn't for the team that we have.
During the last 3 years, were you ever close to calling it? Maybe Scoopy wouldn't have existed. Was there ever at that point?
There was a couple. And so the first one was, so we had popped up in this place for the first time, and we had a good stint there. We were there for about 10 months. But unfortunately, the place that we had popped up in had to close. They couldn't sustain that business anymore. And so there were questions as to, do we continue what we're trying to do? And we were trying to find a new home, really. I think luck has been on our side a couple of times. But Kevin's friend, his dad, had a cafe that was operating just a block away. And we managed to strike up a deal with him. And that was at the end of 2019. And we all know where what happened at the start of 2020. And so that was the second time that we were asking ourselves, do we fold at this point? So at the end of 2019, we moved into this new home in Brick Lane on Guildford Lane, where we are still currently. And then obviously March 2020 hit, everything locked down, everything was closed, and nobody could come to the city. And so our sales,
and Melbourne being the most locked down city in the world.
Yeah, that didn't help either. At the time, obviously, we didn't know that we were going to be the most locked down. But what we did know was that we didn't want to quit at that point. We had seen, so the last days of where we were before we moved to Brick Lane, in that space, we saw hundreds of people come through and just to eat bingsu.
Yeah. Just clearly people loved it.
Clearly people had loved it, and you know, they love the brand, or they love to catch up with their mates and eat bingsu. And so we still wanted to provide that feeling to people, and that's when we came up with Postcode Unlock, which, you know, long story short, throughout the 2 years of lockdowns in Melbourne, that was a way for us to still reach people that we've never reached before. So we were delivering to the outskirts of metropolitan Melbourne. So like as far up as Mernda in the north side to Dandenong south side. And then I don't know if we've ever thought, are we going to fold? Now, I think we've always had this fighting spirit.
What are you most proud of since starting Scoopy?
At the end of last year, we opened our Glen Waverley store. And so to that point, before that, we hadn't opened a real store that we can really call our own, because the one in the city at the moment, whilst I'm proud of that, we're still sharing that with another cafe. And so to us, it didn't feel fully legitimate. But at the end of last year, we opened our own store that we can call our home.
It's completely yours.
It's completely ours. And we designed it the way that we wanted to design it, and we made it happen. And so it was a huge like milestone. Yeah. That's what I'm most proud of.
Oh, congratulations, my man.
Thank you, Berlin.
How did you celebrate? Are you a type of person that celebrates your wins, or you just keep moving forward and sometimes forget all the hard work and the wins that you've made?
Well, we always try to celebrate our wins. I'm pretty sure we had champagne given to us on like opening day, but I don't think we even opened it. We haven't even opened it yet.
Yeah.
But I think we had a nice dinner with the partners, and no, it was good. Always try to celebrate your wins.
Definitely. Going forward, do you think you'll still continue balancing the corporate job?
I think it's coming to a point maybe where maybe Scoopy could be supportive fully of all of us, or at least me. I find immense enjoyment in this. I'm able to flex my creative muscle. You know, I'm able to meet cool people and really have an impact on the community based off what we're doing with Scoopy Friends. I think the corporate career will have its place. I'm not going to say I'm not going to balance it anymore, but that's where I'm currently at. Who knows where it might go?
I have some random questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
If that's all right.
Yeah.
What was the last thing you Googled?
Let me see. Oh, this might be a little. The last thing I Googled was Melbourne Fashion Week 2023.
Oh, nice.
The reason behind that is we're thinking of doing this fashion show in Chinatown.
No way.
Yeah. It was just this little seedling of an idea, but Melbourne Fashion Week is in March next year. It's also a Scoopy Friends initiative. We want to throw this event and we want to work with Chinatown to do it. Obviously, it's a big thing that we're trying to achieve, and so we're just in the starting little planning sessions that we're starting to have.
Was Google like your best friend when you were starting your business?
It's incredible what you can find on Google if you put the right questions in.
Were you able to YouTube how to make bingsu in 2018?
I think so. I think there was a couple of YouTube videos, and we would like frame by frame them, and pause them and just like write notes on on things. And at the start, we were also going to do like a soft serve business as well as bingsu. We were going to do bingsu and soft serve at the same time, so we were researching both. But YouTube and Google were like our best friends. We ultimately decided not to do the soft serve side.
Okay.
And I think that was a good decision. But yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do it without Google. You kidding me?
Did you read books on books about startups? The lean startup, a lot of people refer to that.
Yeah.
Did you follow certain methodologies?
I am a chartered accountant by trade, so there's a little side of me that's a little bit more analytical and wants to like have things set out. But in terms of like,
that kind of traps me sometimes.
It does.
Wanting things to be all planned out. It never does go to your plan, and it kind of like slows down your execution.
Yeah, I think in that situation, you really have to just be. You really have to like keep it simple. Like, choose 1, 2, or 3 things that you really want to follow to the end. Make sure you have that, and really just like get those done at a time. Like, are you
decisive?
I like to think I'm decisive.
Right.
Try to get things in, and Tesia really helps me with that. I think she's so intelligent, and so just to pump her up a little bit. I don't know what she's gonna do when she hears this, but
she sounds pretty awesome.
She is. Yeah. She's incredible. She's incredible. I did want to shout out this one book that I came across. I think it's called Small Giants by Bo Burlingham. And so it has
Small Giants.
And it has all these stories about small businesses that deliberately said no to maybe going public because they wanted to maintain the control, or they wanted to maintain the authenticity and what made that business that business. And so there was this one story about the guy who started Shake Shack, and he had
I'm sorry, what's that?
Shake Shack.
Okay.
So it's a burger joint in New York City.
Right.
With that, he had a whole bunch of a group of businesses that he had built up before. So I don't know all the businesses in his group, but I think he was going to go public or something around that, and he said no to that, and that really resonated with me. Not that we're going to go public anytime soon with Scoopy, but to see somebody who seemingly gone to the top of the mountain in terms of his business still have the conviction to say no. Because
to stay true to the vision.
Yeah.
And going public, most people probably already know, but that means being listed. Yeah, like on the stock exchange.
Yeah, and to have this like massive cash inflow, everyday investors going to own your business as well. That really puts it into perspective, like when you're growing and creating your business.
It's hard to say no, especially when the offer is so lucrative.
Yeah. If you say yes too early, for example, maybe the business...
Lose your identity.
Yeah, the trajectory of the business maybe will go in a completely different direction that you didn't want to happen, for example. That book was pretty good, I would say. Definitely check it out.
What's one of your biggest fears?
I'd say growing up, one of my biggest fears was... so my dad growing up was always in and out of hospital because he had like kidney problems and all of this stuff. Probably one of my fears is like he's still with us today, but maybe one of my fears is like maybe my kids won't meet him or like they won't grow up with him because he was such a great father figure to me. And I think having that loom over your head as a kid does push you in different directions.
How is Dad?
Yeah, that's good. He's had 2 kidney transplants, which is crazy to me.
Wow.
And I think he might be needing another one in the near future. But I hope, that's probably one of the scariest things because, like, I don't have a big family over here. It's just, like, my immediate family and yeah, just my brother and my parents.
Thank you for being so raw and sharing that. I really wish your dad very best, and I'm sure he's very proud of you.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
If you could turn back time and talk to your teenage self, what would you say?
Teenage self, I would say spend more time with your brother.
Huh.
Yeah.
Older, younger brother?
Do you have siblings?
No, just myself.
He's a younger sibling. Yeah. He's but we have a big gap. It's 6 years. I don't know how. It's hard to like keep that relationship close when you're sort of a big gap. I can't imagine like people who have bigger gaps than that. Yeah, I would say family is a big part. Been really important to me the last couple of years. So if you ask me right now, make sure you're building your family relationships and keeping those and holding those close. You only have one mom, one dad, and hopefully you have siblings. But if you don't, then try to hold them close if you can.
Talking about family, going back to your dad, how do you think your dad would describe you, his son? Does he realize like how much you've achieved and the difference that you're making? Yeah,
but sometimes like dads can be it's a quiet like pride. They don't always want to tell you because they're like, oh, maybe you'll stifle what he wants to do.
Get into your head.
You'll get into your head. But I would like to think that sort of up to this point, like I've been able to push myself and sort of be happy with what I've been able to come at. I think to him, happiness over everything is what he would be most proud of.
You were saying happiness, that to see you happy? Is that what you mean?
I mean, yeah, in a way. It's like he would say, I'm happy, I'm proud of him because he's happy. He's happy with what he's doing. He's doing something that's maybe a little bit more risky, but he's able to express himself in ways that maybe he couldn't if he wasn't, working in a job. Because they sacrifice a lot for us to be here. I wouldn't be sitting here if they didn't make it out of the Philippines, and I think that's a huge goal for a lot of Filipinos.
Has your dad always been like this, and he cared so much about you being fulfilled and happy in what you do? Or did he ever set his own expectations on you growing up?
I think for him, because he was so like in and out of hospital like throughout my whole life, I think he was mainly concerned about, that I was content with my choices, because that would be the ultimate predictor of success, I guess. I don't know. In terms of like Asian parents pushing you in a certain direction, they definitely made sure that I was getting A's, or, you know, obviously pushing me in a direction of at least having options.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was still the person who made that decision. And I asked for support from them, and they were like happy to see me go wherever I wanted to go. It just so happens where I wanted to go was maybe also in line with what my parents wanted. So I don't know, maybe chicken or the egg dilemma, right? What came first?
I have no idea.
No, neither.
Where would you like to go now, going forward in the years to come?
Going forward, I'd really like to see what kind of impact we can have on the community. Right now, I'm super proud of what we've been able to achieve this year. And maybe I do take that plunge to go into Scoopy full-time and grow that business to something that is a lot more than bingsu. So not sure, but I am excited.
I'm really excited for you. It's such a thrill to see all these events that's coming up at Scoopy Supports. It's such a loved, I'm in the city most of the time, and I just see, you know, people crowding around Scoopy on Guildford Lane, and it's a buzz. Like, people kind of just go there to it feels like kind of home, like they chill and hang out there. It's just a great vibe.
I'm so glad you feel that way. I mean, when we first started this, one of our main goals was that, one, it felt like a home away from home, and two, it was somewhere.
That's one of your ethos.
That's one of I'd say that's one of our ethos for sure. When we first went to that Mango Cafe in San Diego, we saw a lot of people hanging out with their friends, having a great time. We wanted to always recreate that with Scoopy as well, to be a place where people can, you know, catch up with their mates after a long time and just enjoy whatever it is they're eating. And so it's great to see that you're observing that too.
Lastly, if I may, I personally care deeply about mental health, and to raise awareness in that area, would there be something that comes to mind for you, any personal stories or the ways that you look after yourself? You're a leader, incredibly dedicated and ambitious. I'm would be really interested to hear how you look after yourself, or the things that you've learned along the way when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do recognize this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, so very fitting. With myself, I like to think of it as I have this mental health toolkit that I can use or break open at any time that I need it. And so we have things in there like 10-minute guided meditations. Just sit there, press play, and it kind of gets you and then guides you through that. 10 minutes a day. And so
who is we?
We, anybody, me.
You?
Sometimes I get Tesia involved.
Sure.
Maybe she's too stressed about something. I have this. I'm like, okay, let's listen to this together, and just try to relax those racing thoughts in your head. Is
this something I could try too?
Yeah, definitely. You know, there are apps like Headspace, or I use this app called Waking Up. It's not like a magic thing that you will feel better. But I think if you're going through a tough time, something like that over a 3-5 day period or something like that can really help you gain a little bit more stability in your thoughts. And with that, in the toolkit, I also have things like journaling. So, you know, if you're feeling overwhelmed by something, it's always good to just have a blank piece of paper. Or you can just type it, either, whatever suits you. It doesn't really matter. But really, it's about stream of consciousness writing and trying to just get everything you're thinking of onto the page. And it's a therapeutic process. The idea is to really calm you down. Maybe you gain perspective. As you start to write the words, you get on different tangents that maybe hopefully you don't spiral more. But you're able to kind of get those down on a piece of paper, get it out of your head. Do you feel lighter? You feel lighter. Yeah. So those are the things that I've been using for the past couple of years to, you know, as you juggle corporate and business, it's not always a walk in the park. Obviously exercise. You should maybe just go. Are you still a powerlifter? I am not a powerlifter. Powerlifting was great. because I was a scrawny 21-year-old kid, and that allowed me to kind of gain a little bit more self-esteem, gain like my legs. Maybe I like went through so many pants because like my legs grew to the point where the legs in between would create holes.
Huge quads.
These days they're a little bit more like tame. I don't go through pants like that anymore.
Easier to buy clothes.
Yeah. But it really kind of showed me where I could push my body. To an extent that has parallels to everything else I do. Like when I feel like I'm at my limit, I know that my limit is just like this thing I'm making up in my head. You can definitely go, to the next level. And I think that mindset of, what I learned in the powerlifting is definitely, I'm definitely applying it to my life now broadly.
And singing? A lot of people feel better after a good sing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a good karaoke session, whether you just
we should do one.
Do it at home. Yeah. or you go to one of the many karaoke places here in Melbourne. Going back to that mental health toolkit, like nothing beats talking to someone about your problems, whether that be a trained professional, whether that be a friend or a family member. Hopefully you have somebody to speak to. There's definitely different places you can call as well. But yeah, it definitely helps to speak to somebody and be open and just be vulnerable a little bit.
Thank you for being so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Sharing with us your journey, and it's just such a pleasure to be here with you.
No, it's been fun to kind of talk about Scoopy, but also the different parts of me that kind of I can put into Scoopy. And so, yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, were there any final things that you wanted to say?
I would just say, if you want to keep up to date with what we're doing for the Asian Australian community, definitely follow Scoopy Friends at Scoopy Friends on Instagram, and Scoopy Milk Bar on Instagram or TikTok as well.
Also follow Scoopy NGLO. It's Angelo.
Yep, that's my
Labrador's
personal.
Unless you don't want people to follow that.
I don't mind.
Just a shout out to
I don't
that.
mind. We have a lot in store for 2023 in terms of Scoopy. If you listen to this, you check us out and come along. I'm super excited.
It's been such a joy to know you for many years, and really there was a huge gap before we met again. But I feel going forward, in 5, 6, 7 years to come, like I'm going to be blown away again by where you guys go next.
Thanks, Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you.